Broadcasting from Studio 202 at the Springett Technology Center in Navasota, Texas. It's NOV Live. Now, here's your host, Michael Gaines.
Hello and welcome to NOV Live. I am Michael Gaines and glad you're joining us today as we continue our conversation, bringing you technical experts and expertise as we dive into technologies from around the energy world that is having an impact on the energy landscape. So glad you are joining us today as we have a great conversation with a guest about production chokes, and certainly going to get all of your questions in today as much as possible. But we're glad that you're joining us from wherever you are in the world, which is the great part about our program today. So before we dive into our conversation, we're going to head over to Shelby Dumaine to talk about how you can be a part of our show. So always good to see you, Shelby.
It's great to see you as well, Michael. And speaking of where in the world our audience is watching, that's one of my favorite parts, to see if you want to comment and let us know where you're tuning in from. Already I'm seeing Cameroon. I stumbled on my words. Louisiana, I'm seeing Dubai, all over the world people are tuning in. So it's really great to see where you are watching from, and hello, welcome to the show. Throughout the show, speaking of the comment section, we want to invite you to ask any questions. So today we have a really great topic, really great expert here for you. And if you have any questions at any point in the show, you can just comment those questions, whether you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. I am here in the comments. That's why I have my screens up here. I'm watching the conversations and any questions that you might have. And so we're going to get to as many as we can in a live Q&A at the end. If you also want to watch any of our past episodes, you can do that at nov.com/live. That's where we have any show, any episode we've done, whether it's for this or for our other show, Inside Out. You can catch all of those there. And as always, if you have a question for any of those past shows, you can always email us at socialmedia@nov.com. So those are all the ways you can reach out to us. Of course, for today, for this show, you can simply comment. You don't have to worry about emailing. But those are all the ways you can ask us your questions. So now it's time for the show, part of the show where I ask you my question. It's time for Rig Geek Post of the Week.
Rig Geek's Post of the Week.
All right, and a little background on this question. So an invention we've all loved, we all use every day, is the light bulb. And part of the light bulb, something used in that, is tungsten. Also, where tungsten is used is in our chokes, our production chokes, and so our choke trim. And we want to ask you today, we're going to have that question up on the screen. We have used enough tungsten in our choke trim to supply New York City with light bulbs for how many years? If you think you know the answer to this question, go ahead and comment that below, and at the end of the show, we are going to reveal that answer. So stay tuned. If you think you know it, go ahead and comment, and we will see if you are right at the end of the show.
That sounds good. Tungsten, the unappreciated material, right?
Right.
Yeah, need to give it
Exactly.
some light there. So that's great. So that's a good one. I like it. All right. Well, thanks, Shelby, and yeah, definitely feel free to put those questions in. We'd love to get to those during our conversation. So today we are, as Shelby mentioned, we're talking about production chokes and how they fit in today's production world. And so our guest expert here today is Mr. Brandon Holmes. He is a technical sales representative within the PFT group here at NOV, and graciously hit the road all the way from Shreveport and came on over to Navasota here in our studio 202. So thanks, Brandon, for getting some drive time in for us.
Yeah, no problem, Mike. I'm glad to be here in person. Right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nice to see this in person.
Yeah.
Present, so
Yeah.
happy to be here.
Great. Glad to have you. So wanted to maybe start. I always like to assume that folks maybe aren't as familiar with some of the technology. One of the things I've always appreciated is the energy world. I mean, there are just, it seems like an infinite amount of technology, and so everyone's kind of focused in on a specific area. So for those that may have heard about chokes, I'm more on the drilling side, so I didn't get exposed to a lot of the production side of things. So, so maybe help me understand when I hear a production choke or a choke, what is that, and where is it used? Why do we use it?
Sure, Michael. So production chokes are really, in theory, they're really a simple process, right? So it's mostly closely related to a valve, right, in its family of products, right? So a valve is used to shut the flow of gas or fluids or oil on and off, right? Well, a choke, same fashion, but it's used to throttle, okay? So it's a throttling device that's used in essentially all types of production, right? Even from industrial types of fluid movement. So in its most simple definition, it's a device used to throttle the movement of fluid from a higher pressure to a lower pressure, right? So it's a control mechanism that's used, and it's a really, really neat space. There's a lot of physics and engineering that goes into how these things are designed and their uses in the system. And you can find them all over the place, right? In any type of energy producing process. Like there's chokes from one end of the spectrum to the other. So, it's a large space. There's a lot of applications for it. Most of the civic product is more aligned towards the production space, right? So, you find these chokes in areas like production wellhead Christmas trees, right? That's probably the most common space where you're actually restricting the flow of the energy that we've drilled for downhole into a manageable fashion in the pipeline or in the processing vessels, right? So you also find it in flowback applications or well test applications on choke manifolds. You'll find chokes in processing vessels. You'll find chokes like gas production units, sand traps, line heaters, even in industrial applications, right? So the movement of water or various types of fluid and gases. Anytime you have to take a fluid or a piece of media and you have to reduce its velocity or reduce its flow capacity from a higher pressure to a lower pressure, a production choke is where you're going to fall. If you want to check our graphic here, this is what you'll see in a normal oil and gas operations. You'll see the Christmas tree there in red, and then our production choke right there at the helm.
Okay. Yeah, no, and so that makes sense. I wasn't aware specifically of their use case, so that makes sense. So helping throttle. So when you look at the chokes that you and the team have been able to provide, there's an appreciable runway, a lot of history there, and being able to provide those in many different areas. What does that look like?
Sure. So yeah, NOV's been a choke manufacturer for over 50 years. So we've been in this space a long time, right? We've taken acquisitions of legacy brands of chokes that our viewers may be familiar with, like Best and Schaefer and Core Valve, and we've taken that combined quality and knowledge, and as a group, we've organically grown that into what we have today as our offering of production chokes. And so, it's ever evolving, right? But we've taken the legacy of our products and our history of manufacturing the quality, and we consistently and constantly evolve that. And so that's that offering of what we have today.
Right.
And so, again, like we said, Michael, it's an important part of the process. And to give you just a quick example, in theory, its use is, think about it, if you got up every morning and you went to crank your car, you went to drive to work, and as soon as you cranked your car, it went 100 miles an hour as fast as it could go.
That almost sounds like me sometimes, or at least my mind,
right?
But maybe not.
Okay,
maybe not.
So if it did that,
Yeah.
and the only way for you to slow that down was to turn the car off,
Yeah.
right? That's not a very effective way to operate that, right? Same sense, that's what our chokes do in the production world, right? We spend all these resources, all this money, all these high technology to drill these really deep, long, high-producing wells. And we have to find a way to harness that, right? So once we drill that, everything below the earth is high pressure, right? So we have to find a way to harness that to be a usable form of energy, right? So all that is done in a really small piece of equipment called a production choke, right? So I think that in itself kind of proves the value of what the product actually does, the abuse it has to take, the engineering that has to go into designing this. So in theory, that's what it does for the entire process, just like a throttling device on your vehicle.
So, as you're explaining that, I'm thinking through kind of a historical timeline, and I'm sure over the last 5 decades that the team has seen varying degrees of challenges, especially as you went from, just like on the drilling side, where you went from almost exclusively vertical wells to now having some extended reach laterals and interacting with different formations and things of that nature. What have you and the team seen historically, but maybe even more so? What are some of the more recent challenges that customers are seeing, especially as you're looking in the production shows?
No, absolutely. Great question there. So obviously, just like everything else in our space, in our energy producing space, it's evolved over the years, right? So now we're drilling deeper wells. We're drilling into higher pressures. We're dealing with more corrosive environments with a higher concentration of solids, right? So fracking operations have grown massively in the content of solids we inject into these wells that ultimately a lot of times get produced back. And we're doing it in more remote parts of the world than we ever have before. So traditionally, a production choke was essentially a commodity type product where, it was a one size kind of fit all, right? We've well surpassed that with the revolutions we've had and what we do as an industry. And so we've had to kind of change our mold to fit that as well, right? So we've made advances to keep up with those advances.
So on that comment, maybe I'd like to maybe get a little more specific. So when you're looking at the actual physical environment that these production chokes are situated in, I'm sure you're getting the full kind of the full complement of environmental impact, whether that's sand, heat, cold. I mean, you name it. How has the development on the production choke side really looked like, especially as you're looking at kind of the enhanced drilling and completion needs and advances of the market now?
Sure. Yeah. So we've had, like we mentioned, and to answer your question more directly, like we've had a lot of opportunities to advance with our customers, and one of the things, our processes that we have in place is more aligned with staying in tune with what our customers' needs, right? So we as a group and as a team and as an organization take a problem-solving approach to what our customers come to us with what their needs are, right? So, and that involves things like doing customized projects for our customer, gathering infinite amounts of data and putting it through a rigorous selection process to help our customers make the best decision on what choke they need that fits their process, right? So we've done things like that. We've done things like enhance our design over the years, right? We've done things like use physics in trim designs to better preserve the life of the choke trim in the application, right? As things get more severe and more erosive, we've had to constantly evolve that process. We've done things like do customized projects for offshore applications where we've gathered data for years before we've actually put it into use and to what product we'll push to market. It's really from the top down within our organization, right? It's from our upper management to our engineering team to our supply chain folks to our manufacturing guys at the plants, to our sales staff and even our service folks, right? So as long as we as a group stay closely aligned with what our customers' needs are in the industry space, we can align our product and what we produce and what we manufacture to fit that. And so it's a give-take relationship where we have to make sure we're seeing eye to eye on all levels to make sure we're producing what our customers need. And we've done a very good job at that in the past. And so, there's a lot of advancements we've made on the product, and I think that they'll continue.
So I have a couple more questions for you. Before I get to that, wanted to just remind our audience, either for those that have just joined us or those that have been with us from the top of the program, we are having a conversation today with Brandon Holmes. And again, our topic is talking about production chokes and how they fit in today's production world. So if you have any questions, whether you've been watching us from the top of the show or just joining in, if you have any questions on production chokes for our guest, Brandon Holmes, feel free to put those in the comment section, whether you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can. I know that we've already got some questions coming in already, so feel free to put those in, and we'll try to get to as many as we can in just a couple moments. So, Brandon, I don't think that we can have a conversation almost about anything in the energy space nowadays without digitalization and automation coming up, and rightfully so. Sure. It's almost like there's no excuse nowadays for us not to be able to talk about that. So, I can only imagine the opportunity that applying automation and digitalization has afforded the production chokes side of things. Can you talk a little bit about what that's looked like and what that offers?
Sure. No, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. This is a topic that I could talk about for days, right?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have.
Don't hold me here that long.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
No, it's amazing to see what we've done in this space as an industry, as a group, and as our product has evolved. So traditionally, right, you had production chokes that had just manual hand wheels, right? So the only way for you to control your flow out of your production was to physically go out there.
And that's kind of what I mentally think about. Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the space still sees it and views it as. But we've recognized the need over the years, and we've been doing this for a long time. It's really not something that's new, even though we're making new advances in automating our chokes, right? So providing things like pneumatic and electric, even hydraulic actuation that can actually mechanically move the choke open and close, right? And this space is just, it's taken off tremendously now, right? So there's not a whole lot of operators out there anymore that are actually manually adjusting their chokes, right? So we provide the hard iron portion of this process that allows customers to make real-time adjustments, real-time changes, and manage their entire field of production at the touch of a button from a control room hundreds of miles away.
Which I can see being an immediate and impactful boost in terms of reducing operational costs, support, especially for some of these chokes that, you're on the road quite a bit, so I'm sure you see some of these are in the backwoods of the backwoods, right?
Absolutely. So think about this, Michael. You've got hundreds of wells in production in the desert, in Kuwait. You've got wells that are 50 miles deep in a ranch in South Texas, or you've got some in the far reaches of New Mexico that they're not very accessible, right? If you want to be able to control your production and control what you're producing, you've got to have this type of technology on your well site to help you do that. And the savings and the benefits are, they're infamous, right? So you put the piece of equipment on. And we set it up correctly to where your production is automated. You've now preserved the integrity of your wellbore, right? When you're slugging water or slugging gas and things of that nature, your choke can automatically make adjustments, closed or open, to make sure your production stays online. We've even recently seen things like our customers use our chokes to control their emissions, right? So they have to stay within a certain flaring emissions regulation. So the chokes are automatically shutting production back in to make sure they're staying within that regulation. We've seen things like, it keeps people off the wellhead more often, right? So it's a safety factor, right? Where personnel aren't having to physically drive out to a location just to stand by some high pressure wellheads to make adjustments. So like I said, I could talk about this for days, but it's really taken off or really catching on over the last few years. And it's something that, we take pride in, that we've been able to be on the forefront in helping our customers really see some tremendous benefit on how they manage their production.
So I know one of the benefits and advantages that you and the team have is constantly of course, supporting existing customers, existing operations, but always kind of having that eye to the future. And I know there's a lot of folks in all over the team that are constantly looking at the what ifs and the how can we support that feedback that we're getting from customers. So to the degree to which we can talk about it, what are some of the things that you all are focusing on as you look ahead to the 2022s and beyond type of thing?
Sure. Yeah, Michael. So like we mentioned earlier, we have to make sure that we're always in line with what direction the market is going and what direction our customers need us to go. And so we're constantly evolving our product. We've got a lot of things that our group, our engineering team is working on to try and enhance our product and to tap into new markets that our product can be used for, right? And so, just a couple of things, maybe a little preview of what we're working on is we've got a really nice steam choke application that we're looking to put into some geothermal type situations, and that's something new on the horizons for us. We're also back to the automation side of things. We're developing, and I think actually testing today, what we would call a smart choke type technology, to where we integrate the entire system of automation package type deal for our customers to allow them to automate their well. And so we're gathering data for all this constantly, but those are a couple things that we're excited about as a group and as a team that our customers have asked of us.
Yeah. Well, looking forward to hearing more about that as time goes on. That's really great.
Absolutely.
So I know, so we're going to actually get ready to pivot to our Q&A for sure. I know that folks are always saying, hey, do you have a website? Send me somewhere. So I don't want to leave our main conversation here without giving that to folks. So where can people find more information?
Absolutely. So you can go to www.nov/chokevalves. Or you can reach out to any of us directly. I mean, we've got service centers, we've got personnel and manufacturing facilities and service technicians and very educated team of technical guys located across the world, really, to support this product. And so reaching out to any of those contacts is your best form there. But you can also go to our website there at nov.com/chokevalves.
Great. All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, Shelby, I know that you look like you're furiously working the chat over there. So it seems like we got some good questions coming in.
Yeah, we sure do. I always love being in the comment section. That's what I'm proudest of on the show. And it's getting to see everyone. And this first question comes from YouTube, which I always love when we get a YouTube question. So Varkov, and this is right at the top of the show, Varkov was wondering, can you talk about what do you think is the best refrac technology in regards to chokes?
So in regards to chokes, in refrac technology, the production chokes and refrac technology don't really align too well, right? So in fracking operations, obviously you do see a lot of equipment that uses chokes, right? So from pump trucks to cement trucks to manifolds. And so production chokes don't really relate too much in that space. So we'd probably have to dig a little more in depth on that one to see how the two would relate to better answer his question, but we'd be happy to do that.
And like we mentioned, NOV.com/choke valves. You can find us there, or like Brandon said, email us directly. All right, and so this next question comes from Curtis on LinkedIn, and they're wondering, does NOV still manufacture choke manifolds or just components for manifolds?
No, absolutely. We still manufacture choke manifolds, and we do that out of the UK. We have a complete group that's in charge of designing and manufacturing those manifolds. Now, it doesn't fall within our group of NOV, of the PFT group, but in our family of products and organizations, absolutely.
Awesome. And I think I've said this in a past show, but sometimes if you just leave a comment, it's not even a question, I'll turn it into a question because I'll see it and I'm like, oh, that looks good. I want to know.
Yeah.
And so Joe on LinkedIn made the comment that sand is a factor that he sees a lot in the Bakken region or oil field. And so I wanted to ask, where are some other regions that maybe sand comes into play or where we could help kind of in that regard?
Yeah, and how do they handle that? Because that's everyone's biggest enemy, it seems, right? Is sand.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about it. Michael, we've gone from producing vertical wells and loose sands to now fracturing with 14, 15, 20,000 tons of sand injecting into a shell, overpressurized And so essentially, Joe, every basin is seeing sand issues, right? So, a lot of what we have done to advance our product is to fight that sand, right? So we're a consumable product in the process, right? So our products are designed to fight the velocities, the sand as they come back out of the wellbore, and hopefully save the rest of your production equipment and your capital equipment downstream, right? And so we've made tremendous advancements in using things like, cage over sleeve type trims that use an impingement method of choking down the velocities and helping to fight the erosion of the sand. So to answer your question in short, Joe, everybody's seeing the sand issues, right? It's essentially inevitable. But what we can do as a group and as an industry to help combat that is things we have done over the past 50 years, I guess, to evolve our product.
Excellent. And for this last question, we'll kind of wrap it up with this one. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what training is involved? So I know you mentioned there's some automation, or when we get our chokes out to people, what does the training process look like?
Sure. Yeah. No. So we have a really, really good, like I mentioned earlier, good staff of personnel that's technically advanced with service technicians, and so yeah, we train every person that buys one of our chokes. We're going to physically come out there and we're going to sit down with you and we're going to help you understand the product, understand its function, and understand how to take what you want to use it to do, right? And so, I mean, just a couple weeks ago, I was in Odessa, Texas, training some of our customers there. We had a training just this week in Shreveport with some of our internal staff to help train their customers there. So that's something that we take pride in, that we know our product well, and that we will give you the tools as a customer to that you need to operate it efficiently.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for answering. I feel like even though I'm maybe not in the audience watching, I feel like I want to thank you on behalf of the audience for answering those questions. And also thank you, the audience, for submitting those questions. And of course, if you have any more, you're welcome to still put those in the comments and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Or you can always email us at socialmedia@nov.com. If you think of any question later and you're like, I want to reach back out to them, that's how you can find us. And before I give it back to Michael, hand the show back over to him, I do want to answer that Rig Geek question. So we'll show this answer one more time, and I'll stall a little bit if anyone still wants to try to get an answer in there. But the question we asked, we were talking about kind of how light bulbs use tungsten and how our chokes use tungsten. So we asked, we have used enough tungsten in our choke trim to supply New York City with light bulbs for how many years? And we did have some people correctly guess the answer. I suspect some of them were some of our own colleagues here at NOV, which might
Hey,
be
as I
cheating,
say,
but
a W on the board, a win's a win. I don't know.
I'll take it. I'll allow it.
I don't know.
I'll allow it. So the answer is 5 years.
Wow.
So, and I'd say at least 5 years. It could it may be more than that. But so we could supply New York City with enough light bulbs for 5 years.
Wow.
It's pretty incredible.
That's really interesting.
And
Brandon,
that's a city that
fires,
Keep the lights on.
Yeah. Well, great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Shelby. That's really great. And Brandon, appreciate you joining us today. And again, just for those that are if you want to know more information on our conversation today on the production choke valves, you can head over to NOV.com/choke valves, or you can email Brandon directly. He's happy to talk to you. So that's brandon.holmes@nov.com. So, all right. Well, appreciate you joining us, Brandon.
Thank you,
and of course, thank you for joining us here on NOV Live. If you want to find any of our previous episodes, head over to NOV.com/live, where you can find any of our episodes of this program or Inside Out Horizons. So helping us on the social desk is Shelby Dumaine. Our production team is Paul Dufio and Wei-Han Lin. Our guest is Brandon Holmes, and I'm Michael Gaines. On behalf of all of us here at NOV, thank you for watching and for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.